So the first time I started stealing was when I was a little girl, and it all started with food because I wasn't fed enough at the time. When I started primary school, which is elementary school in Australia, my stepmother would make me these like cheese sandwiches, and it was just a slice of bread, a slice of cheese, and then a bread, and she'd cut it in half and then wrap it up. And I had never tasted cheese before, and so I did not like it. It was like stinky, like it was kind of like rubbery. I don't know. I did not like it. I love cheese now though. She would pack me this lunch and I would take it to school, and I would just never eat it. And these sandwiches would start building up in my backpack. And one day my teacher noticed that I wasn't eating. And she's like, Sojong, that's my Korean name. That's the name that I went by at the time. Sojong, what happened to your food? Where's your lunch? I didn't speak English at the time, so I was just like, I don't know. She looked through my backpack and she found almost 2 weeks worth of rotten, molding cheese sandwiches. And she emptied out that backpack, and it was a black backpack. She emptied it out onto the table. And I remember just sitting there and I was mortified, and everyone was staring at me. And she's like, why aren't you eating these sandwiches? And I just, I couldn't speak English, so I just kind of shook my head and I was tearing up. And so she gave me a little note to give to my stepmother. And it probably said something like, you need to pack her a different lunch. And soon after that, it became a slice of bread and then like some jam. But she was a little bit stingy, and she would just get like a little blob of jam and just put it in the middle of the bread, and then put the slice of bread on top, cut it in half. So the only yummy part was just like that little part in the middle. But I ate it, but I was still hungry. I barely had breakfast. Sometimes when I did have breakfast, it would just be like a bowl of rice and some kimchi. But it was one of those like fresh kimchis, and so they didn't really taste good to me at the time. Other times she would just give me like a bowl of rice. She would crack a raw egg, and she would just mix it up and make me eat it. And it was one of the nastiest things that I've ever eaten at the time. I remember trying to swallow it, and I would be gagging, and the food would go down and then it would go up again, and it was just like going up and down. And I remember just like tearing up and trying to eat it because I'm hungry. And so bottom line is I was always hungry. And it wasn't until second grade that I decided to do something about it. In the beginning, I had a few friends in second grade, and they were very nice, and they would, give me half of their sandwich or give me half of like the kimbap, that their mothers rolled up for them. Kimbap is like a Korean sushi roll, minus the actual sushi. I would, of course, scoff that down, but I was still hungry. Over time, I decided to take matters into my own hands. So we would eat in the classroom, and then right after eating, we'll go outside to play. And I remember after everyone left, I was left behind in the classroom by myself, and I started looking through the kids' lunch boxes, and there were a lot of food left over. There were some lunches that were barely eaten. There were still some lunches that were like practically new. I helped myself to them because I figured, well, it's just all going to waste anyways. And then it started escalating. So in third grade, by then I had moved to a different school, and all the kids went out to lunch. And I remember this one girl, Angie, she had this little shoe wallet. It was like a coin purse, and it was like a white sneaker with shoelaces on it. It was like a keychain. And she would always brag about how much money she had, and I could hear like the jiggling of the coins. And I was always envious, you know. She always had plenty of food, and you know, she was always buying something from the school canteen. And one day I decided to take that shoe. I was looking through different bags and I found hers, and it was right there in the front of the backpack, and I just took it, put it in my pocket, and then I went to the bathroom and I counted out the coins, and there was maybe like $5 in coins, and I got a little $2 coin, and I went to the school canteen and I bought myself some chips and a sandwich for the first time ever. And I remember eating that, and I remember feeling really happy that I was eating this delicious food for the first time. And the sandwich, I think it was a Nutella sandwich. I'd never tasted Nutella before. It was delicious. And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, you know, I felt a little guilty. And sure enough, like after lunch, you know, she was looking for her purse and she couldn't find it, and she was crying. I felt really bad. But the stealing just continued on. Once I started getting away with these little moments of theft, I started stealing other stuff. I would go to the library and I would steal library books. I would take out the barcode. There was a school book there, and I loved books at the time. I love reading. I still love reading. And I remember there was a table, and it was just, you know, filled with new books. And I remember walking up to that table, and I was flipping through all the books and just thinking, oh, I wish I had more books. And I took about 4 of them and I just walked away. Little did I know that my teacher, my 3rd grade teacher at the time, she saw me, and her and the principal and the librarian, they came up to me, and I was caught. What I did, of course, wasn't right, but looking back, it was definitely a bigger story of pain and hunger, a lot of things going on at home, and that contributed to that behavior. And I did what I had to do at the time in my head, to survive, because I was just always hungry. And, you know, that led to like other behaviors. The hunger that I experienced as a kid contributed to a lot of the binge eating that I did as an adult. The binge eating came about probably in college. I had a very unhealthy lifestyle at the time. I skipped breakfast, and I would always eat very late at night. I would eat a lot, to the point where sometimes I did throw up just from eating so much. I wasn't anorexic or bulimic, but I would just eat so much that my stomach would not be able to contain all the food. And you know, they say it takes your stomach about 20 minutes for it to realize that it's actually full, and that's why they say eat slowly. And that's another bad habit that I experienced. I just ate really fast. I would eat an entire pizza to myself in like 10-15 minutes. I mean, it was really bad. And because I had grown up so malnourished, I was naturally like very small, and my bones were a little weak, and I wanted to gain weight. So in college, I purposely ate all the unhealthy foods that you can think of. The burgers, pizzas, noodles were my favorite. I would always order Chinese noodles, like Korean Chinese though. It's called jjampong and jjajangmyeon. I would order those in the middle of the night, you know, along with some 탕수육, which is sweet and sour pork. Those were the days. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I found out that I had high cholesterol. Now I weighed probably like 44, 45 kilograms at the time. I believe that's a little under 100 pounds. But I was extremely unhealthy. And even as a teacher, I was an English teacher in Korea. My classes started really late, so we would eat dinner at like 11 p.m. and we had a lot of Korean barbecue, like almost every day. And I loved my pork belly, the samgyeopsal. The pork belly was so good, but it was not good for my body. Despite all that, it took me a long time to learn my lesson and to improve my eating habits. It's something that I'm actively still working on now, because it's like my mind and my body are behaving separately. I don't even know how to explain it. But yeah, I was a little thief in elementary school. So I just want to apologize to my classmates and especially Angie for stealing. I know it's like 30 years later. And I also want to thank them for feeding me at the time, because I was just so hungry. Now I'm just curious, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Have you ever stolen anything as a kid? If so, what is it and why? And for those of you who have felt invisible or unloved or even hungry, I see you.